In the soft glow of a Florida sunrise, the Palm Beach marina was a canvas of serene beauty, yet beneath the surface a chilling mystery lay dormant for decades. Fast forward to the present, the arrest of a once revered billionaire's heir. But to understand the gravity of this moment, we must journey back to the fateful summer of 1991. Meet Emily Carter, a vibrant 26-year-old whose laughter filled every room. Emily was not just a maid. She was the heart of the luxurious yacht, the Serene Glory, owned by the enigmatic magnate Charles Harrington. Her days were filled with polishing crystal glasses and tidying opulent cabins, but it was her warmth and kindness that earned her a cherished place among the crew, and perhaps among some of the elite guests. Emily's life was far from ordinary, though she never let the grandeur of her surroundings change her. She was saving meticulously, dreaming of opening a small bakery. Her friends often teased her about her penchant for collecting rare vintage postcards, a hobby that seemed out of place amidst the wealth she served, but one that grounded her. It was her little escape, her secret world. That summer, the Harrington family hosted an extravagant gala on the yacht, a night that promised glitz, glamour, and secrets. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfumes and the clinking of champagne flutes. Emily, as always, was in the background, ensuring everything was perfect. Yet, to those who knew her well, she seemed a bit distant that evening, her mind possibly preoccupied with something she had yet to share. As the moon hung over the calm sea, casting a silvery path on the water, the night drew to a close. Guests departed, leaving a trail of whispered scandals and a lingering tension. Emily was seen clearing the last of the glasses from the deck, a soft hum on her lips. But what happened next remains a mystery. Emily vanished without a trace. The initial investigation was quick to label it a case of a young woman overwhelmed by a world she didn't belong to, perhaps seeking a new life elsewhere. But those who knew Emily refused to believe she would leave without a word, without her beloved postcards. Her family, devastated, fought against the tide of indifference, their pleas echoing unheard across the vast expanse of wealth and power. As the first light of dawn crept over Palm Beach, a frantic 911 call shattered the quiet, marking the beginning of a haunting journey that would span decades. Emily Carter was missing, the only clues left behind, a single postcard of a lighthouse and a diary tucked away in the depths of a forgotten archive. What happened to Emily Carter? Why was her disappearance overshadowed by the very family she worked for? The answers lie hidden in the shadows of the Serene Glory, waiting for the light of truth to uncover them. The voice on the other end of the 911 call was shaky, laced with a sense of urgency that couldn't be ignored. "Yes, hello, I need to report a missing person. Emily Carter. She was last seen on the Serene Glory, the Harrington's yacht." The operator's voice was calm, methodical, asking for details that seemed trivial in the heat of panic. But as the questions continued, the eerie picture of Emily's last known hours began to take shape. She had been the glue that held the evening together, managing minor crises with grace, her presence a calming force in a sea of chaos. Friends and family described Emily as a bright flame, a young woman full of potential, caught in the throes of wealthy privilege she never chased, but found herself entangled within. She was known for her kindness, her unwavering loyalty, and a quiet resilience that spoke volumes more than words ever could. Yet beneath the polished exterior, those closest to her knew of her unfulfilled dreams of traveling the world beyond the confines of Palm Beach, of discovering what lay beyond the horizon that her postcards often depicted. Emily was an enigma wrapped in simplicity, someone who cherished the small things in life, even as she served the whims of the rich and powerful. The night of the gala, the yacht was a floating palace, a testament to the Harringtons' immense wealth. But as glasses clinked and laughter echoed, Emily's absence went unnoticed until the light of dawn revealed the truth. Her room aboard the Serene Glory was untouched, the bed neatly made, her belongings carefully placed as if she intended to return. The postcard of a lighthouse found on her pillow was a curious anomaly. It was addressed to no one, a solitary reminder of Emily's fascination with the distant and the unknown. The diary, discovered much later, was a treasure trove of her thoughts, a secret world that she had kept hidden from everyone around her. In the days following her disappearance, Whispers circulated among the staff and guests. Some speculated she had run away, tired of the gilded cage she was trapped in. Others feared foul play, their suspicions shadowed by the Harringtons' influence that loomed over every aspect of the investigation. Her family, a modest and close-knit group, were relentless in their pursuit of answers. They knocked on doors, distributed flyers, and pleaded for help on television, their voices raw with desperation. Yet, the case grew cold, overshadowed by the allure of the Harringtons' social standing. As the investigation stalled, questions lingered. Why did Emily leave behind the postcard of the lighthouse? What secrets lay hidden in her diary that could unlock the mystery of her disappearance? The answers seemed as elusive as Emily herself, slipping through the fingers of those who sought them. But somewhere in the depths of time and memory the truth awaited, a revelation that would turn the world of Palm Beach upside down. The last entry in Emily's diary, written in a hurried scrawl, was a cryptic message, a puzzle waiting to be solved. "The lighthouse holds the key," it read, leaving everyone to wonder, what did Emily know that could have led to her disappearance? And so the story of Emily Carter lingered, a haunting melody that refused to fade, as the investigation into her disappearance finally began, driven by a single unwavering question: who was the last person to see Emily that fateful night? The first 48 hours after Emily Carter's disappearance were critical, yet marred by missteps that would haunt the investigation for decades. As the sun rose over Palm Beach, casting long shadows over the serene waters, the Harringtons' estate became a hive of activity. The local police, summoned to the scene, were met with a scene that was as confusing as it was disturbing. Officers moved through the opulent yacht with a sense of unease, their footsteps echoing off the polished teak decking. The Harrington family, visibly shaken, yet maintaining a veneer of composure, hovered nearby, their presence a constant reminder of their influence. In those early hours, the priority seemed less about finding Emily and more about managing the optics of the situation. Detective Daniel Fowler, a seasoned officer with a reputation for thoroughness, was one of the first on the scene. He immediately sensed the complexity of the case. Interviews with the yacht's crew and guests began, but the initial questioning was superficial, hindered by the tension in the air and the unspoken pressure to tread lightly around the Harringtons. Key witnesses, such as the yacht's captain and a few remaining guests, offered little of substance. The captain, a grizzled seafarer with decades of experience, insisted that nothing unusual had occurred during the voyage. Yet beneath his calm exterior, there was a flicker of something, doubt perhaps, or fear. The other guests, members of Palm Beach's elite, were equally unhelpful. Their recollections of the evening were vague, clouded by the haze of alcohol and the allure of the Harringtons' hospitality. It was a party, after all, and the details of one evening blended seamlessly into the next. Emily's family, meanwhile, were frantic. Her mother, eyes red from sleepless nights and tears, pleaded with anyone who would listen. Her father, a man of few words, stood silently beside her, his presence a testament to their shared anguish. They begged the police to leave no stone unturned, yet their pleas fell on ears dulled by privilege and power. Crucial mistakes were made in those first hours. The yacht was not secured as a potential crime scene, allowing guests to come and go, inadvertently contaminating evidence. The initial assumption that Emily had simply walked away led to a delay in mobilizing a search, precious time slipping away as her trail grew cold. Despite these setbacks, Detective Fowler was determined. He honed in on the postcard of the lighthouse found on Emily's pillow, convinced it was more than a mere fascination. The lighthouse, a solitary sentinel on the coast, was a place Emily had visited often, a refuge from the world. Fowler wondered if it held some significance to her disappearance, but as the hours turned into days, the investigation stagnated. Leads dried up, and the fervor of the initial search waned, overshadowed by other events. The Harringtons resumed their lives, albeit with a shadow cast over their social gatherings, while Emily's family remained trapped in a relentless cycle of hope and despair. Yet, in the quiet corners of the investigation, Fowler continued to dig. He returned to the lighthouse, his instincts telling him that the answers lay somewhere in its towering presence. What he didn't know was that a breakthrough would come, not from his relentless pursuit, but from an unexpected source, a revelation hidden in plain sight waiting for the right moment to emerge. And as the sun set on another day, the question lingered. What secrets did the lighthouse hold, and who was desperate enough to ensure they remained hidden? The evening brought a restless calm to the investigation, the kind that precedes a storm. Detective Fowler stood at the base of the lighthouse, its silhouette stark against the dying light. He pondered the connection Emily seemed to have with this place. His gut told him that the postcard was a key, but to what door? Back at the station, the atmosphere was tense. The first 48 hours were crucial, and time was slipping through their fingers. Fowler had gathered his team for a briefing, determined to retrace their steps and identify any missteps in those critical early hours. The police had initially interviewed several guests from the Harringtons' opulent yacht party. Their statements were varied, ranging from vague recollections of Emily's last known whereabouts to dismissive shrugs about her character. Many were quick to assure that she was simply a young woman prone to dramatics. But Fowler wasn't convinced. The dismissive tones masked deeper truths. A crucial oversight emerged. The yacht's security logs had been neglected. In the chaos of the initial investigation, no one had thought to check the surveillance tapes or logbooks. That oversight had allowed a potential suspect to slip away unnoticed. Fowler's frustration was palpable. He knew they had lost valuable time by not treating the yacht as a crime scene immediately. Evidence had been compromised, and witnesses were now scattered, memories fading with each passing day. Despite these setbacks, Fowler was relentless. He focused on the lighthouse postcard, hoping it might guide him to new leads. He had a hunch it was a message, a breadcrumb left by Emily herself, perhaps a place where she felt safe or where she had met someone significant. Meanwhile, Emily's family was increasingly desperate. Her mother, eyes hollow from lack of sleep, sat in the station lobby clutching a photograph of Emily. Her father, stoic but visibly shaken, paced the floor, his gaze fixed on the door, as if willing Emily to walk through at any moment. Their grief was a constant reminder of the stakes. Fowler felt the weight of their hope pressing on him, urging him forward, even as the clock ticked relentlessly. As the investigation floundered, a surprising witness came forward, the yacht's maid, Marina. She hesitated at first, her voice barely a whisper above the murmur of the station, but her eyes, wide with something between fear and determination, told Fowler she had more to say. Marina revealed she'd seen Emily that night, standing alone on the deck, gazing out at the sea. She'd seemed contemplative, perhaps troubled, but Marina had been too busy with her duties to give it much thought. Still, there was something in Emily's demeanor that had unsettled her, a distant sadness that now, in hindsight, felt like a silent cry for help. Fowler pressed her gently, and Marina hesitated, then admitted she had something else. A diary. Emily's diary, left behind in the room she'd cleaned that morning. Fearful of the consequences, Marina had kept it hidden, unsure if anyone would believe her, if anyone would care. But now, holding the diary felt like holding a key to a locked door. Fowler knew this could be the breakthrough they desperately needed. As he took the diary from Marina's trembling hands, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The first page revealed a glimpse into Emily's world, her hopes, her fears, and possibly her secrets. It was a window into her soul, and Fowler knew that within its pages lay the truth about what had happened that fateful night. With the diary as their new guide, the investigation took a promising turn. But as Fowler delved deeper, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone else, someone with a vested interest in keeping the past buried, might be watching their every move. And as the night deepened, one question loomed large. What secrets would Emily's words unveil, and who would stop at nothing to keep them hidden? The station was a whirl of activity, officers bustling about as Fowler sat at his desk, the diary open before him. Each entry was a thread, weaving a tapestry of Emily's life, her inner world painted in ink. But time was of the essence, and the first 48 hours were slipping away fast. The initial police response had been swift but flawed. The Palm Beach precinct, unused to dealing with high-profile cases, had been overwhelmed by the media circus that descended upon the yacht like vultures to a carcass. Officers scrambled to secure the scene, but crucial evidence was lost amidst the chaos. Witnesses eager to share their stories were either overlooked or intimidated by the sheer gravity of the situation. Emily's family, the influential Devereaux, were frantic, their polished facade cracking under the strain. Her father, a titan in the business world, demanded answers, his voice a booming echo in the police station corridors. Her mother, pale and trembling, clung to hope, her eyes darting anxiously for any sign of her daughter's return. Yet, as the clock ticked, mistakes began to surface. The yacht, a floating palace, had been a hub of activity the night Emily vanished, hosting a lavish party attended by the crème de la crème of society. But in the rush to contain the scene, the guest list was only partially recorded. Key figures slipped through the cracks, their testimonies uncollected, their alibis unchecked. Fowler knew these early missteps could prove disastrous. The diary in his hands was both a blessing and a burden, its pages whispering secrets that could shift the investigation's course. He needed to act quickly to follow the threads Emily had left behind. Marina, the maid whose courage had brought this invaluable piece of evidence to light, was now a pivotal witness. Her observations of Emily, her recollections of that night, were critical. Fowler decided to re-interview her, hoping to extract every last detail she might have missed in her initial statement. The sun was beginning to rise, casting a pale glow through the station windows as Fowler sat across from Marina once more. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her eyes shadowed with fatigue. "You said Emily looked troubled that night. Was there anything else, anything unusual about her behavior or the people around her?" Marina hesitated, searching her memory as if sifting through sand for hidden gems. She spoke to someone, a man. "I didn't recognize him, but they seemed tense. I only caught a glimpse, but it was enough to make me worry." Fowler's interest was piqued. A new player in the narrative, a shadowy figure whose identity could unlock another piece of the puzzle. But who was he, and what was his connection to Emily? As he pondered this, another officer approached with a report. The initial forensic sweep of the yacht had yielded a set of fingerprints on the deck rail, distinct from the crew and guests identified so far. An anomaly, something that shouldn't be there. Fowler felt a chill of anticipation and dread. The fingerprint could be a breakthrough or a dead end, but it was a lead he couldn't afford to ignore. The clock was ticking, the stakes rising with each passing moment. Fowler knew he had to tread carefully, balancing on the fine line between pursuit and presumption. As he turned back to the diary, a new urgency burned within him. Emily's words were a map, and he was determined to follow them to the truth, no matter where they led or whom they implicated. But with every revelation the danger grew, a shadow lurking just out of sight, ready to strike if he got too close. What secrets lay hidden in the depths of Emily's world, and who among them was desperate enough to ensure they remained forever buried? The station buzzed with a quiet tension, an undercurrent of anticipation mingled with the fatigue of a long investigation. Fowler, determined to chase every lead, knew that time was not on their side. The fingerprint was a promising thread, but without a name or face it remained maddeningly elusive. In the days following, Fowler and his team worked around the clock, cross-referencing the fingerprint with databases, hoping for a match that could breathe life into the stagnant case. Yet as each search returned empty, frustration mounted. Meanwhile, whispers began to ripple through the tight-knit Palm Beach community, each rumor a small fire stoked by speculation and fear. The media latched onto the story, painting vivid and often inaccurate portraits of potential culprits. Locals, eager to fill the void of uncertainty with narrative, pointed fingers at familiar faces: the rival businessman, the disgruntled employee, even the elusive family friend who'd vanished from the social scene. Fowler found himself inundated with tips, each one more tenuous than the last. Among them, a name surfaced repeatedly: Marcus Ellison, a local entrepreneur with a penchant for flashy yachts and a rumored history of financial disputes with Emily's father. The community's favorite suspect, though a far cry from conclusive evidence. Despite his reservations, Fowler pursued this lead, questioning Ellison at his seaside villa. Ellison, smooth and unflappable, denied any involvement, his alibi supported by friends who vouched for his presence at a charity gala that fateful night. Still, the pressure to produce results was relentless. Fowler's superiors demanded answers, pushing for an arrest to quell the growing unrest. Yet the more Fowler dug into Ellison's life, the less convinced he became of his guilt. Parallel to this, Emily's family, cloaked in grief, began to withdraw. Her father, a powerful figure now reduced to a shadow of his former self, pleaded for privacy, his public bravado shattered. Fowler, feeling the case slipping through his fingers, turned once more to Emily's diary, hoping to find a clue that might have been overlooked. The pages, filled with her hopes and fears, painted a portrait of a young woman wrestling with burdens beyond her years. Yet they offered no names, no clear suspects, only a haunting refrain of uncertainty and trust betrayed. As days turned to weeks, the investigation lost its momentum. Leads dried up, the trail grew cold. The community, once ablaze with theories, returned to its semblance of normalcy, the case relegated to a whisper of the past. Fowler, though weary, refused to let go. He sensed that the answer lay tantalizingly close, hidden in plain sight. But where? And who was the shadowy figure seen with Emily that night? He pondered these questions late into the night, the weight of the unsolved case pressing heavily upon him. The silence of the station deepened, broken only by the distant hum of the city outside. And then, just as he was about to close the diary for the night, a detail caught his eye. A passage he'd skimmed over before, innocuous at first glance, but now resonating with new significance. Emily had mentioned a meeting, a secret rendezvous with someone she trusted implicitly. Fowler's pulse quickened. Could this be the key, the hidden connection that had eluded them all? Determined to unearth the truth, Fowler knew he had to keep digging, to piece together the fragmented puzzle of Emily's last days. Somewhere within the shadows of her world lay the answer, waiting to be discovered, and he vowed not to rest until he found it. The city awoke to another day, the sun casting long shadows over the palm-lined streets of Palm Beach. Detective Fowler, bleary-eyed but resolute, clutched Emily's diary like a lifeline. The passage he discovered hinted at a clandestine meeting, though vague and frustratingly devoid of names. Determined, Fowler set out to retrace Emily's steps, beginning with the last few entries. He interviewed friends and acquaintances, probing for any mention of unusual behavior or undisclosed confidants. But each conversation seemed to circle back to the same handful of names, none of which stood out as the mysterious figure she had alluded to. Meanwhile, the community buzzed with speculation. Theories swirled like the ocean breeze, each more outlandish than the last. Some whispered about a jealous lover, while others cast suspicion on the yacht crew, who were often overlooked yet omnipresent. The town itself seemed to become an echo chamber, amplifying rumors that only led to dead ends. Fowler's attention turned to a group of young men, sons of the wealthy elite, who were known for their wild parties and reckless behavior. Among them was Derek, the son of a prominent businessman whose name surfaced repeatedly in whispered circles. His charm was undeniable, but so was his penchant for trouble. Fowler pursued this lead, scrutinizing Derek's alibi for discrepancies. Derek, accustomed to scrutiny, met Fowler's questions with casual disdain, confident in his untouchability. Despite his bravado, Fowler sensed a hint of evasion in his eyes, a momentary flicker of fear that suggested deeper secrets. But as the investigation delved deeper into Derek's world, the evidence remained maddeningly thin. His friends closed ranks, providing alibis that were airtight if not rehearsed. The trail seemed to run dry, no matter how vigorously Fowler pursued it. The pressure mounted. The media, initially captivated by the intrigue, began to lose interest as the case stalled. Headlines shifted to other stories, leaving Emily's disappearance to fade from the public eye. Her family, once fervently advocating for justice, grew silent, their hope dimming with each passing day. Yet, Fowler was not alone in his frustration. Within the station, whispers of his obsession with the case began to surface. Colleagues offered sympathetic nods, but quietly questioned his dogged pursuit of a mystery that appeared unsolvable. The weight of expectation, both personal and professional, bore down on him like a storm cloud. Still, Fowler refused to abandon Emily's story to the annals of unsolved mysteries. The passage in her diary, though elusive, was a beacon in the darkness. He knew there was a connection, a truth buried beneath layers of deceit and privilege, waiting to be uncovered. But time was slipping away. With each day, the case grew colder, the hope of resolution ever more fleeting. Fowler, driven by a mix of resolve and desperation, knew he needed a breakthrough, something to reignite the investigation and pull Emily's memory back into the light. In the quiet sanctuary of his office, he reviewed the diary once more, searching for patterns, for anything he might have overlooked. And as the shadows lengthened outside his window, a new question emerged. Was the answer hidden not in who Emily met, but in why she had to keep it a secret? The diary lay open on Fowler's desk, its pages whispering secrets of a life cut short. Each entry was a fragment of a puzzle that refused to come together. Fowler's eyes skimmed the lines once more, searching for a spark, a revelation. But the words remained stubbornly cryptic, their meaning elusive. Outside the confines of the police station, the town of Palm Beach buzzed with hushed conversations and speculative gossip. In the absence of concrete answers, the community filled the void with its own narratives. Rumors swirled like autumn leaves, each more outlandish than the last. Some pointed fingers at the yacht's captain, a man with a shadowed past and a penchant for disappearing when questions arose. Others whispered about the enigmatic artist who had been seen sketching near the marina that fateful evening, his eyes lingering on the yacht longer than seemed necessary. Fowler's investigation team, though small, pursued these leads with diligence. But each interview, each piece of evidence seemed to dissolve under scrutiny. The captain, though evasive, had a corroborated alibi. The artist, eccentric and aloof, claimed to have been lost in his art, oblivious to the world around him. Their stories, though imperfect, held enough truth to deflect suspicion. As the days turned to weeks, the pressure on Fowler mounted. The community's patience wore thin, their faith in law enforcement eroding. Emily's family, once vocal and persistent, retreated into a shell of grief, their hope flickering like a candle in a storm. Even the media, once a relentless presence, shifted focus, their cameras and headlines drawn to new dramas, new tragedies. Yet amidst this growing silence, one voice remained, a soft, persistent whisper within Fowler's mind. It was the voice of doubt, questioning every decision, every assumption. Was there something he had missed? Some thread left unpulled? He pored over every detail, desperate for a breakthrough. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across his office, a new thought took shape. Perhaps the answer lay not in the diary's explicit words, but in its omissions. What was Emily not saying? What was so dangerous, so forbidden, that she couldn't bring herself to write it down? This new line of inquiry was both thrilling and daunting. But just as hope began to flicker anew, reality crashed in. The station chief summoned Fowler, his expression grave. The investigation, he announced, was being scaled back. Resources were needed elsewhere, and without new leads, Emily's case was slipping into the realm of the unsolvable. Fowler's heart sank, a heavy weight of failure settling in his chest. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm him, a quiet resolve took root. This was not the end. He would find a way to keep the case alive, to honor Emily's memory. And as he left the station that night, a new determination burned within him. For somewhere in the shadows of Palm Beach, the truth waited to be found. And Fowler, driven by a relentless need for justice, vowed to uncover it, no matter the cost. The stage was set for a breakthrough, but the path forward was shrouded in mystery. And as he walked into the night, a single thought echoed in his mind. What secrets would Emily's silence finally reveal? The years slipped by like sand through an hourglass, each grain a reminder of time lost, of justice deferred. Palm Beach, with its sunlit shores and opulent yachts, drifted into a tranquil facade, the whispers of the past drowned out by the gentle lapping of the ocean waves. But the silence that enveloped Emily's case was anything but peaceful for those who loved her. The Channing family, once vibrant and full of life, now bore the scars of a tragedy unresolved. Emily's mother, her hair now streaked with grey, became a shadow of her former self, her laughter silenced by the weight of unanswered questions. Her father turned inward, burying himself in work, his eyes hollow with the burden of grief. For them, every day was a reminder of their daughter's absence, an echo of her laughter that would never fill their home again. Despite the passage of time, the Channings refused to let Emily's memory fade into obscurity. They hired private investigators, combed through every lead, and clung to every shred of hope, no matter how tenuous. They faced the indifference of a community eager to move on, determined to believe that Palm Beach was a safe haven, untouched by such dark shadows. Yet, beneath the surface, the town had changed. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the unsolved case, their words tinged with a mix of curiosity and fear. Rumors swirled, each more outlandish than the last, but they all shared a common thread, an uneasy sense that the truth was far more sinister than anyone dared to imagine. One man, though, never let the case slip from his mind. Fowler, now working in a different department, carried Emily's diary with him like a talisman, a constant reminder of promises made and secrets untold. He spent countless nights poring over its pages, searching for the elusive clue that might finally bring the truth to light. Each entry was a puzzle piece, and with every read he grew more convinced that the key lay not in what was written, but in what was conspicuously absent. Meanwhile, the Channings, refusing to let the world forget, took to the media. They appeared on talk shows, their voices breaking with emotion as they recounted Emily's story, pleading for any piece of information, any witness who might come forward. But as the years rolled into decades, their appearances became less frequent, their hope dimming with each passing anniversary. The community, once galvanized by the tragedy, slowly returned to its routine. New scandals and stories captured the headlines, pushing Emily's case further into the background. But for the Channings and Fowler, the silence was deafening, a constant reminder of a justice yet to be served. And then, just as the case seemed destined to remain an enigma, a chance encounter rekindled the flame of hope. Fowler, now a seasoned investigator, met with an old contact who spoke of a retired detective with information about a certain yacht party from 1991. The detective, it seemed, had spent years piecing together a theory, one that implicated someone far more powerful than anyone had dared to suspect. As Fowler listened, a chill ran down his spine. This new lead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but it was also the most promising development in years. As he prepared to dig deeper, a single question loomed large in his mind. Was this the breakthrough he had been waiting for, or just another dead end in a long and winding road? With renewed determination, Fowler set out to unearth the truth, driven by the hope that at long last Emily's voice would be heard. The silence, it seemed, was about to break. Fowler sat in his dimly lit office, the only illumination coming from the flickering computer screen, displaying a grainy image of the Palm Beach Yacht. He leaned back, contemplating the retired detective's words, each syllable laden with implications that could shake the very foundations of the wealthy circles he was about to delve into. The retired detective, a man named Harris, had spent his career swimming through the murky waters of high society crime, his instincts honed to razor sharpness. He had whispered a name, one that sent shivers through Fowler's spine, a name that had eluded public suspicion, shielded by a veneer of philanthropy and charm. For the Channings, the passage of time had been cruel. Each year marked another reminder of their loss, a wound that never healed, only scarred over with the pain of unanswered questions. They had poured their resources into private investigators, each one leaving with empty promises and hopeful reassurances. But the trail had always gone cold, leaving them with a growing stack of invoices and no closer to the truth. In the community, Emily's story had faded into a cautionary tale, whispered among the locals as a reminder of the dark side of luxury and excess. New generations grew up hearing about the mysterious disappearance, but the urgency had dissipated, replaced by the latest gossip and scandals. Fowler, however, was not deterred. He reached out to Harris, arranging a meeting at a nondescript diner far from prying eyes. The detective, now grey and grizzled, carried an aura of secrets long kept. Over steaming cups of coffee, Harris recounted his findings, his voice a low murmur almost lost in the clatter of the diner. The name was Robert Sinclair, a billionaire heir with a reputation for extravagant parties and a circle of friends who wielded power with the ease of a conductor leading an orchestra. Sinclair had been at that fateful yacht party in 1991, an unassuming figure in the background, yet Harris believed he held the key to unraveling the mystery. Fowler listened intently, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to interlock in his mind. Harris spoke of a witness, a young deckhand who had vanished shortly after the party, leaving behind only whispers of a hushed altercation and a hurried escape. As Fowler thanked Harris and left the diner, he knew the path ahead was fraught with danger. Sinclair was a man of influence, his reach extending into the very institutions meant to uphold justice. Yet Fowler felt a glimmer of hope. The silence, long and oppressive, was beginning to crack, and with it the possibility of justice for Emily Channing. Returning to his office, Fowler prepared to dig deeper into Sinclair's world. He contacted the Channings, sharing the latest developments with cautious optimism. Their response was a mix of hope and fear, emotions long suppressed but never forgotten. For the first time in years, the family felt a shift in the winds, a sense that perhaps at long last, the silence was not a barrier, but a curtain about to be drawn back. They braced themselves for what lay ahead, knowing full well that the truth, once revealed, could alter everything they thought they knew. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the city, Fowler resolved to follow this lead wherever it might take him. The long silence was breaking, and with it the promise of long-awaited answers. The Channing family had lived in a state of suspended animation for years, their lives marked by the absence of Emily, a void that time had done little to fill. The world around them moved on with indifference, but for the Channings every day was a reminder of what had been lost. Emily's room remained untouched, a shrine to a life interrupted. Her parents, weary from the burden of unresolved grief, found solace in small rituals, lighting candles, whispering prayers, hoping against hope that their daughter would return to them in some form, even if only through the truth. As the years turned into decades, the case of Emily Channing slipped into the annals of forgotten mysteries, a cold case that gathered dust in the archives of the local police department. The media frenzy that had once surrounded the case had long since dissipated, leaving behind only the echo of unanswered questions. For the Channings, the silence was oppressive, a constant reminder of their failure to bring Emily home. The community, once galvanized by the search for Emily, gradually shifted its attention to new headlines and fresh scandals. The yacht party, a distant memory, became the stuff of local legend, a cautionary tale whispered among those who dared to remember. But for those who had been close to Emily, the silence was a betrayal, a collective amnesia that left them isolated in their grief. Yet, even as the world moved on, the Channings refused to let go. They hired private investigators, combed through every shred of evidence and followed leads that led to dead ends. Each time they thought they were close to a breakthrough, the trail went cold, leaving them more despondent than before. In the quiet moments, when the weight of the years felt unbearable, they would revisit Emily's diary, her words a lifeline to the past. It was in those pages that they found comfort, a connection to their daughter that transcended time and space. Emily's voice, captured in ink, spoke of dreams and hopes, a life full of promise that had been cruelly cut short. Despite the long silence, the Channings held on to a fragile hope that justice would one day be served. They clung to the belief that someone somewhere knew the truth. It was this hope that sustained them through the darkest times, when the world seemed indifferent to their suffering. And now, with Fowler's new lead, that hope flickered to life once more. The name Robert Sinclair was like a match struck in the darkness, illuminating a path that had been obscured for too long. Would this path finally lead them to the answers they sought, or was it yet another mirage in a desert of false promises? As the Channings braced for the journey ahead, they knew that whatever the outcome, they would face it together. Meanwhile, Fowler, driven by a sense of duty and a desire for justice, prepared to delve deeper into Sinclair's world. He knew the risks involved, the potential for danger when confronting a man of Sinclair's stature. Yet the long silence had been broken, and with it the possibility of uncovering the truth. The stakes were high and the consequences could be dire, but Fowler was determined to see it through. The stage was set for a confrontation decades in the making, a collision between power and truth that would test the resolve of all those involved. As the pieces began to fall into place, one question lingered. Would the truth finally come to light, or would it remain buried beneath layers of wealth and influence? For years, the Channing family lived in a world where time seemed to stand still, each day an echo of the last. The vibrant life of Palm Beach carried on around them, oblivious to the void that had settled in their hearts. The glittering yachts continued their elegant dance in the harbor, and the social events carried on with an air of opulence that felt almost otherworldly to those who bore the weight of loss. To the outside world, the Channings appeared as a family in mourning, their grief tucked behind polite smiles and immaculate appearances. But behind closed doors, their home was a sanctuary of sorrow and remembrance. Emily's room remained untouched, a shrine to her memory, where they often found themselves lost in quiet reflection. Every anniversary of Emily's disappearance was a fresh wound, a reminder of the justice that eluded them. The community, once abuzz with whispered sympathies and theories, had gradually turned the page. New stories filled the headlines, and the buzz of scandal shifted to fresher, more sensational topics. Yet, the Channings refused to let Emily's story fade into obscurity. They poured their energies into a private investigation, hiring seasoned detectives and employing the latest forensic advancements in a bid to unearth anything that the initial investigation had missed. Each lead, each promising thread, led to another dead end, another heartbreak. Her diary, Mrs. Channing would often say, is more than just words to us. It's a beacon, a guide through the unfathomable darkness. Her voice would tremble slightly, but her resolve never waned. The diary had become their compass, a map with invisible ink, waiting for the right light to reveal its secrets. The years stretched on, and with them, the Channings' world became a tapestry of persistent hope intertwined with relentless despair. Yet beneath the surface, a quiet determination simmered. They knew that Palm Beach was a place where secrets could be as deep as the ocean itself, and they were willing to dive as deep as necessary to find the truth. As the family pursued their quest for answers, the community's whispers occasionally resurfaced. Rumors of an heir, whispered conversations about Robert Sinclair, the enigmatic son of a billionaire, began to float through the elite circles. But rumors were like smoke, elusive and intangible, leaving the Channings grasping at shadows. Fowler, meanwhile, continued his own investigation with an unwavering focus on Sinclair. The long silence had been broken, and with it, a resolve had been ignited. He combed through financial records, scrutinized connections, and revisited old testimonies with fresh eyes. The name Sinclair was a thread in a tangled web, one that required patience and precision to unravel. The passage of time had not dulled Fowler's determination. He knew that Sinclair's world was one of privilege and protection, where the boundaries of law and morality blurred under the weight of influence. Yet the truth had a persistence of its own, a stubborn refusal to remain buried. As the pieces of the puzzle slowly began to align, a new question emerged, casting a shadow over the investigation. Would the Channings' pursuit finally pierce the veil of silence, or would the secrets of Palm Beach remain locked away, hidden beneath the gilded veneer of wealth and power? The long silence had been filled with whispers of hope, and now, as the investigation gained momentum, the Channings stood on the precipice of revelation. The answers they sought lay just beyond the horizon, waiting to be uncovered. The whispers of hope now had a voice, and it came in the form of a new detective, Detective Laura Jensen, known for her cold case successes and relentless pursuit of justice. She arrived in Palm Beach with a fresh perspective, one untainted by the past missteps and oversights. Jensen's presence was a glimmer of hope for the Channings, who had endured decades of uncertainty and heartache. Jensen's first step was to revisit the evidence, each piece a fragment of a story waiting to be told. She zeroed in on what others had overlooked or deemed insignificant. In the dusty corners of the police archive, she discovered a box labeled Palm Beach Yacht 1991. Inside, among the forgotten files and faded photographs, lay a single strand of hair, preserved but unanalyzed by the technology of the past. The world had changed since the early 90s, and so had forensic science. Jensen knew that advances in genetic genealogy could breathe new life into this old evidence. She reached out to a cutting-edge lab specializing in DNA phenotyping, a technology that could craft a profile from even the most minute genetic material. This strand of hair, if it belonged to someone of interest, could be the key to unraveling the mystery. Meanwhile, the Channings' lives were once again on a knife's edge, teetering between hope and despair. The news of Jensen's involvement and the potential breakthrough brought a renewed sense of purpose. They had grown accustomed to the ebb and flow of hope, but this felt different, more tangible, more real. As the forensic process unfolded, Jensen worked diligently, piecing together a timeline that had eluded previous detectives. The yacht, once a symbol of affluence and leisure, was now a vessel of secrets. Jensen's investigation revealed discrepancies in the logs, anomalies that pointed to clandestine meetings and shadowy figures. Among these, the name Robert Sinclair emerged repeatedly, a ghost in the records. The lab results were due any day, and the anticipation was palpable. The Channings, along with Fowler, gathered, their eyes fixed on the horizon. The question of whether the truth would finally emerge loomed large, its answer tantalizingly close. Would this new technology cast light on a darkness that had persisted for so long? In the quiet moments before the results, Fowler shared a whispered revelation with Jensen. He had uncovered a lead, a former crew member with ties to Sinclair, now living in seclusion. This individual might hold the key to understanding the events on that fateful night. As Jensen prepared to follow this new lead, the tension in the air was almost tangible. And then, the call came. The lab had results. The analysis was complete. The next step was crucial, and the answer lay in the hands of genetic science. The Channings stood breathless, teetering on the edge of discovery, as Jensen prepared to unveil what could be the pivotal moment in their long journey for justice. Would this scientific breakthrough finally reveal the killer in plain sight, or would the truth remain just out of reach? The tension in the room was electric, as Jensen held the phone to his ear, the lab technician's voice barely audible to anyone else. The Channings watched him intently, their hearts pounding in unison with the silent beat of anticipation. It was as if the world had shrunk to the confines of that room, every second stretching into eternity. Jensen's expression shifted subtly, his eyes widening just slightly, a flicker of revelation that did not go unnoticed. He hung up the call, turning to face the expectant faces before him. "The results are in," he began, his voice steady, yet tinged with an urgency that commanded attention. "The genetic genealogy has unearthed a new lead. The DNA from the yacht, which we thought belonged to an unidentified crew member, matches a living relative, a relative of Robert Sinclair." Gasps filled the air like a sudden rush of wind through an open window. It was the breakthrough they had been waiting for, a crack in the wall of silence that had endured for decades. Fowler leaned forward, his eyes narrowing in focus. "A living relative? Are we talking about someone who could have known what happened on that yacht?" Jensen nodded, the weight of the revelation settling over him like a cloak. "It's a nephew, living just a few towns over. He was a teenager at the time of the incident, but his connection to Sinclair could be the missing piece we've been searching for." For the Channings, it was a moment of bittersweet hope. The possibility of finally understanding what had happened to their daughter was within reach, but it also meant confronting the reality of betrayal, of a truth that had been hidden in plain sight all these years. With renewed determination, Jensen and Fowler made plans to approach the nephew, to unravel the threads of a family secret that had been tightly woven into the fabric of their lives. The Channings watched them go, their emotions a blend of fear and anticipation, knowing that the answers, whatever they might be, were closer than ever. As they drove toward the address Jensen had discovered, a sense of urgency propelled them forward. The past was catching up to the present, and every mile brought them closer to the heart of the mystery. Upon arrival, they found a modest house nestled among trees, its exterior unassuming, belying the secrets it might hold. The nephew, a man now in his 40s, answered the door with a cautious demeanor, his eyes reflecting a wariness born of years of family whispers and half-truths. "We need to talk," Jensen said, his tone both gentle and firm. "About your uncle, Robert Sinclair, and what happened on that yacht in 1991. The man's expression shifted, a shadow of recognition crossing his features. It was the first glimmer of hope, a sign that the past was about to be laid bare, that the secrets long buried might finally come to light. As they stepped inside, The weight of history hung heavy in the air, and the next chapter of this decades-long saga began to unfold. Would the nephew's knowledge bridge the gap between silence and truth, or would it lead them further into a labyrinth of deception? The answer, tantalizingly close, awaited discovery. Inside the dimly lit living room, the air was thick with unspoken truths. Jensen and Fowler settled into chairs across from the nephew, who introduced himself as Michael. His hands trembled slightly as he offered them coffee, a gesture of hospitality that seemed almost perfunctory given the gravity of the conversation that lay ahead. Michael took a deep breath, his eyes darting to a framed photo on the mantel, an image of Robert Sinclair, younger and vibrant, standing proudly on the deck of a yacht. "I've always wondered when someone would come asking about him," Michael began, his voice tinged with a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Uncle Robert was complicated." Jensen leaned forward, his gaze steady. "We understand this might be difficult, but anything you can tell us could be crucial. We believe there might have been more to that night than anyone realized." Michael nodded, a distant look in his eyes. "I've heard stories over the years, whispers at family gatherings. My mother used to say Uncle Robert had a way of keeping things hidden, even from those closest to him." Fowler interjected gently. "Do you have any specific memories or items that might help us? Anything from around that time?" Michael hesitated, then rose and walked to a small cabinet. He returned with a small, weathered box. "This was left to me in his will," he explained, setting it down on the table. "I never had the courage to go through it before, but if it can help—" As he opened the box, the room seemed to hold its breath. Inside were letters, photographs, and a few personal items, a pocket watch, a set of keys, but it was a small leather-bound book that caught Jensen's eye. He reached for it, feeling the weight of potential answers in his hands. "Is this?" Fowler began, leaning in for a closer look. Michael nodded. "His journal, or at least part of it. He was meticulous about his records." Jensen carefully flipped through the pages, scanning the neat handwriting. It was a chronicle of Robert's life and business dealings, but it was the entries from 1991 that drew their attention. Cryptic notes, mentions of meetings on the yacht, and a particular entry dated just days before the disappearance. "The plan is set, must ensure no loose ends." A chill ran down their spines, a confirmation that whatever had happened on that yacht was premeditated, a sinister undertone woven into the fabric of Robert's world. Fowler spoke, her voice a mix of urgency and caution. "This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for, but we need more." Jensen nodded, his mind racing. "Michael, would you be willing to let us take this for analysis? There's a new forensic technology, genetic genealogy, that's been making waves. If we can find anything linking back to that night—" Michael's agreement came swiftly, a sense of catharsis evident in his expression. "Take it. If it helps bring peace, I don't want it hanging over our family any longer." As Jensen and Fowler left the house, the journal safely in their possession, a new sense of determination fueled their steps. The shadows of the past were beginning to recede, and with the application of cutting-edge science, they were on the cusp of unraveling a mystery that had haunted so many for so long. The road ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope, a promise that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, could finally be unearthed. Jensen and Fowler stood outside the house, the journal nestled securely in Fowler's satchel. The sun had begun to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to mirror the secrets they were about to uncover. With each step towards their car, the weight of the journal didn't just rest on Fowler's shoulder, but on their conscience, a silent testament to a decades-old mystery finally yielding its secrets. As they drove back to the station, their minds were a whirl of possibilities. Genetic genealogy had revolutionized cold case investigations, and they were hopeful it would do the same here. The journal, with its meticulous entries, could provide the missing link between the past and present, a tangible connection to the night of the disappearance. In the lab, under the sterile glow of fluorescent lights, Jensen and Fowler met Dr. Caroline Nguyen, a forensic genealogist known for her tenacity and precision. She greeted them with a nod, her eyes reflecting the same determination that had driven them this far. We have a lot to work with, Dr. Nguyen began, her voice calm yet charged with anticipation. The journal might have fingerprints or even DNA traces that were overlooked in the original investigation. If we can extract any viable DNA, we can cross-reference it with public genealogical databases. Fowler handed over the journal, her fingers lingering for a moment on the worn leather cover. We believe there's more here than just ink on paper. We're counting on you, Caroline. Dr. Nguyen smiled reassuringly. I'll do everything I can. Let's start with the basics. Fingerprints, fibers, anything that might have been left behind. As the journal was opened under the glare of the lab lights, the pages whispered secrets of their own. Dr. Nguyen worked meticulously, swabbing the edges, collecting samples, and taking high-resolution scans of each page. The air was thick with the anticipation of discovery, every second stretching like an eternity. Jensen watched, his mind replaying the cryptic notes from 1991. The plan is set, must ensure no loose ends. The words looped endlessly, each repetition a reminder of the stakes at hand. Hours passed in a blur of methodical work, the lab filled with a tension that was almost tangible. Then, as the clock ticked into the early hours of the morning, a breakthrough came. Dr. Nguyen looked up, her expression a mixture of triumph and disbelief. We have a partial fingerprint, it's faint but it's there, and there's more. A DNA sample, possibly from sweat or skin cells. Fowler's heart raced. Can we use it? Dr. Nguyen nodded, her fingers already flying across the keyboard. I'll run it through the databases. If there's a match, we'll know soon. In those moments, the lab seemed to hold its breath. The silence punctuated only by the soft hum of computers and the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock. Each second felt like a heartbeat, a countdown to revelation. Finally, the computer pinged, a sound that echoed like a gunshot in the stillness. Dr. Nguyen leaned in, her eyes scanning the screen, her face a mask of concentration. There's a match, she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. It's linked to a family tree, a prominent name known throughout Palm Beach. Jensen and Fowler exchanged a glance, their expressions mirroring the gravity of the moment. The walls of secrecy were crumbling, and the identity of the killer, long hidden in plain sight, was about to be revealed. Dr. Nguyen turned to them, her voice steady yet tinged with the weight of the truth. We need to move quickly. This is our chance to finally bring justice to those lost years. The air was electric, charged with the promise of resolution. As they prepared to confront the implications of the breakthrough, the shadows that had long haunted their investigation began to dissipate, revealing the path to the truth at last. The killer was no longer a faceless specter but a real person, waiting to be unmasked. Jensen's voice cut through the charged atmosphere, sharp and resolute. We need to confirm this, and fast. Who is it? Doctor. Nguyen's eyes flickered from the screen to Jensen, her words deliberate. The name is Thomas Harrington. He's the eldest son of the Harrington family. Fowler leaned back, processing the weight of the revelation. The Harringtons were not just any family. They were entrenched in the very fabric of Palm Beach society, their influence sprawling like the roots of an ancient tree. How could he have stayed hidden for so long? Fowler mused aloud, the question hanging heavy between them. Jensen, ever the pragmatist, was already plotting their next move. We need to approach this carefully. The Harringtons won't take kindly to accusations without solid evidence. Dr. Nguyen nodded, her fingers tapping out a rapid rhythm on the keyboard. I'm working on cross-referencing the fingerprint and DNA with any other potential evidence we might have overlooked. If we can find a link, anything solid that ties Thomas directly to the yacht that night, it will bolster our case. Fowler's gaze was intense, his mind racing with possibilities. What about the diary? Could it mention him directly or indirectly? Jensen's eyes lit up with renewed urgency. The diary. It's the missing piece we've been looking for. Let's cross-reference any entries with Thomas's known whereabouts during that time. The lab's tension shifted into a flurry of activity. Pages of the maid's diary were scanned meticulously. Each entry was scrutinized, every word dissected for clues that could connect Thomas to that fateful night in 1991. Hours slipped by as they pieced together a timeline. An entry caught Fowler's attention, a seemingly innocuous mention of a TH attending a yacht party. Cross-referencing with social calendars and news clippings from that era, it became evident. Thomas Harrington had been there under the radar. Jensen's voice was barely a whisper, laden with the weight of what they'd uncovered. There it is, the link we needed. Fowler's face was a mixture of disbelief and determination. We need to act now. This is our window to confront him before he realizes we're onto him. Dr. Nguyen's voice held a note of caution. We must ensure everything is airtight. The Harringtons will have lawyers and resources ready to smother any allegation. Jensen nodded, resolve hardening her features. We'll need to contact the authorities, present everything we have. This has to be handled delicately. As they prepared to set the wheels of justice in motion, the weight of their discovery loomed large. Thomas Harrington, the man who'd lived among them as a respected figure, was now the suspect they'd been hunting. The specter of his past crimes was about to catch up with him, and Palm Beach would never be the same. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, each movement a reminder of the time slipping away. Urgency gripped them as they braced for the confrontation, knowing the revelation of Thomas's secret would send shockwaves through the very foundation of society they were about to shake. The team gathered around a conference table, a sea of documents spread before them. The air was thick with anticipation. Jensen took a deep breath, the enormity of their task weighing heavily on her shoulders. We need to prepare a comprehensive report, she began, her voice steady yet urgent. Every piece of evidence must be interconnected. The diary entries, the social calendar anomalies, the testimonies we've compiled over the years. It all needs to fit perfectly. Fowler nodded, already jotting down notes. I'll start cross-referencing the diary entries with the yacht's guest list from that night. We can't leave any stone unturned. As the team delved into their work, Dr. Nguyen focused on the forensic angle. We should revisit the DNA samples from the yacht's crime scene. Modern technology might reveal something the original investigation missed. Jensen nodded. Good idea. We need to be thorough on all fronts. The hours ticked by, each minute bringing them closer to the confrontation. The room was silent, except for the sound of pages turning and fingers tapping on keyboards. Jensen's mind raced as she pieced together the narrative, ensuring each fact was backed by irrefutable evidence. Suddenly, Fowler's voice broke the silence. I've found something. The room's attention snapped to him. It's a note from the diary, dated the day after the party. It mentions a confrontation on the deck. It's vague, but it aligns with witness reports from that night. Jensen leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. A confrontation? Between whom? Fowler flipped through his notes. It doesn't specify, but given the context, it could have involved Thomas. We need to find someone who was there that night, someone who might remember more. Dr. Nguyen spoke up, her voice calm yet determined. I'll contact some of the original investigators. Maybe they'll recall details that were overlooked back then. Jensen nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. And I'll reach out to the Harrington family's former staff. They might have noticed something peculiar in the days following the incident. As the team dispersed to their tasks, Jensen's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and excitement. They were on the brink of uncovering a truth long buried. The clock continued to tick, each second a reminder of the stakes at play. Hours later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jensen received a call. It was an old friend from the police department, someone she trusted implicitly. I've reviewed the DNA samples, the voice said, tinged with disbelief. There's a match. It's Thomas. Jensen's breath caught in her throat. The final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. Are you sure? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Positive, it's a match, the voice confirmed. This is it, Jensen. The weight of the moment settled over her, a mix of relief and dread. They had the evidence they needed, but confronting Thomas Harrington would be another matter entirely. As she hung up the phone, Jensen turned to her team, her voice filled with resolve. It's time. We have everything we need to confront him. Let's bring this to the authorities and prepare for what comes next. The team nodded, united in their purpose. They were ready to expose the truth, no matter the cost. The revelation of Thomas Harrington's secret was imminent, and the world was about to watch as justice unfolded. The room hummed with a charged silence, the gravity of their mission weighing on every heart. Jensen gathered her thoughts, her mind racing with the steps they needed to take. The evidence was irrefutable. Thomas Harrington, the respected philanthropist and heir to a billion-dollar empire, was the murderer they had been searching for all these years. Jensen and her team moved swiftly, coordinating with the authorities to ensure the arrest was executed with the precision necessary for someone of Harrington's stature. They knew that a man with his resources could easily slip through the cracks if given even the slightest opportunity. As dawn broke, casting a pale light over the city, Jensen found herself standing outside the Harrington estate. The sprawling mansion loomed large, a symbol of wealth and power. It was hard to reconcile that within these walls lived a man who had hidden such a dark secret for so long. The police moved in, their presence a silent but powerful force. Jensen watched as the gates swung open, her heart pounding with anticipation. Inside, Thomas Harrington was roused from his sleep, the surprise on his face quickly morphing into a mask of calm civility as he was informed of the charges against him. Jensen listened intently as the lead detective read Harrington his rights, every word a reminder of the justice long denied. She couldn't help but notice the subtle flicker of emotion in Harrington's eyes. Was it fear, anger, or perhaps a flash of regret? Whatever it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a composed demeanor that had served him well over the years. As Thomas was escorted out, the media had already gathered, their cameras capturing every moment of this extraordinary downfall. The world was witnessing the unraveling of a man who had been a pillar of society, a benefactor to countless charities, and a trusted member of his community. His carefully constructed facade was crumbling, revealing the sinister truth beneath. In the following hours, Jensen and her team were inundated with calls from journalists, friends, and even strangers, all eager to understand how such an upstanding figure could have committed such a heinous act. The answer lay in the myriad details unearthed by the investigation, details that painted a picture of a man driven by greed and entitlement, willing to do anything to protect his inheritance. But it was the maid's diary that had provided the crucial insight. Her observations, once dismissed as inconsequential, had been the key to unlocking the mystery. Her words had exposed a pattern of manipulation and control that Harrington had wielded over those around him, a pattern that culminated in the tragic events aboard the Palm Beach Yacht in 1991. Jensen knew there was still much to uncover. The trial would bring more revelations, peeling back the layers of deception that Harrington had so skillfully maintained. As she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment, she couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication for the victims and their families. Justice was finally within reach. Yet, as the day wore on and the initial adrenaline began to fade, Jensen couldn't shake the feeling that there were still hidden truths waiting to be discovered. The end was near, but the story was not yet complete. As the news of Thomas Harrington's arrest reverberated through the community, the courtroom became the epicenter of an unfolding drama that gripped the nation. The trial was set to begin, and the anticipation was palpable. Journalists from every major network gathered, eager to document the fall of a man who, until now, had been untouchable. Inside the interrogation room, Jensen watched as Harrington sat across from her, a shadow of the man he once was. His composed demeanor had been replaced by a nervous energy, a restlessness that betrayed his inner turmoil. The room was silent, save for the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Detective Jensen began the questioning, her voice steady and unwavering. She recounted the events of that fateful night in 1991, painting a vivid picture of the chaos and fear that had descended upon the yacht. As she spoke, Harrington's facade continued to crumble, the weight of his secrets pressing down on him. It was when Jensen presented the maid's diary, a tattered, unassuming notebook that held the power to dismantle an empire, that Harrington's resolve finally broke. With each entry read aloud, the reality of his actions became undeniable. The diary revealed his manipulation, his calculated moves, and ultimately, the night he orchestrated the tragic events to secure his inheritance. Harrington's confession came quietly, almost as if he were relieved to finally unburden himself. He spoke of a life lived in the shadow of his father's expectations, of a desire so consuming that it led him to unspeakable acts. His words were chilling, a testament to the lengths he had gone to preserve his place in the world. The trial that followed was swift. The evidence was damning, and the jury needed little time to reach a verdict, guilty on all counts. The sentencing was equally decisive, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. As the gavel fell, a sense of justice settled over the courtroom, though it was bittersweet for those who had lost so much. In the aftermath, the Harrington family name, once synonymous with wealth and influence, became a cautionary tale. The community was left to grapple with the revelation that a man they had revered was capable of such darkness. The charities he had supported re-evaluated their ties, and the social circles he once dominated whispered of betrayal and deceit. For the families of the victims, the resolution brought a measure of peace. Though their loved ones could never be returned, they took solace in the fact that the truth had finally been revealed. The maid's diary, once dismissed, was hailed as a crucial piece of evidence, and her courage in documenting the truth became a beacon of hope for others in similar situations. As Jensen reflected on the case that had consumed years of her life, she pondered the nature of justice and memory. She thought of the victims, their lives cut short by greed, and the resilience of those who fought tirelessly for the truth. In the end, the case was a reminder that justice, though sometimes delayed, could still be achieved through persistence and courage. In the quiet moments that followed, Jensen knew that while the story had reached its conclusion, its impact would resonate for years to come. It was a testament to the power of truth and the enduring legacy of those who dared to seek it, even when it seemed impossible.